be sharing. So that recording should start momentarily and then we'll move along. So welcome everyone, my name is Kim Holmes and I'm the Program Manager for the Griffith Honours College. I'm also the University nominated staff member who acts as a liaison between the student-led chapter and the Asia Pacific headquarters of Golden Key International Honour Society. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land today, and I join you from the land of the Turrbal and Yagara people. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and I extend the respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples. Today, we're continuing the tradition of sharing knowledge from one person to another from this place of learning. As we move through the session today, please feel free to keep sharing on the chat message and post any of your questions, and our speakers will endeavour to answer your questions during the segment, and we will have a dedicated Q&A at the end. So what are we going to try and cover today? So there's a lot we're going to try and move through today. We've got my colleague from Careers and Employment, Justin, coming to talk about the basics. Where is the starting point? How do you address selection criteria? How do you map out your responses, no matter what you're applying for? We're also very lucky to be joined by Sonia Riverland from the Asia Pacific headquarters of Golden Key International Honour Society, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that society and about the scholarships on offer there. And we also are very fortunate to be joined by Victoria Menzies, who's the prestigious external scholarships coach here at Griffith University. And Victoria's going to share a little bit about her role and the support that Griffith offers to students, staff and alumni applying for those scholarships. Then we're going to circle back and we're going to talk about how to set goals and plan for success, and also share some resources about how you can find out more. I'd like to invite my colleague Justin Ellis to turn on his microphone and camera, and I'm going to hand over to him for the first part of the session.
Hi guys, great to be here today, and hopefully you guys get a little bit of information out of here that can help you with your progress and your career development, whether that be application writing, scholarship writing, or whatever we're talking about. So I've spent many years working in the application space, working in HR and recruitment environments over many years. So getting this part right is often the part that I try and help students and graduates improve, develop, or if better yet, improve their research around how they do this so that they can continue to improve this as they develop as well. This is a life skill or a lifelong learning skill. As you never know when you'll have to do an application, a grant application, research application, scholarship, job application, which is what I'm mainly going to be focusing about first before we get some of our special guests and other people to talk about different application processes that they've been a part of through their career. So working here at Griffith University, my job is to work with students and academics to help students progress to their full potential and find their career goals and career outcomes. And application processing, like we're talking about now, and developing your application is a very vital key. So I'm not clicking through, but I'm just going to see if I can take control of the slides for a bit. Kim, I'll give it back to you in a moment. And let's see if I can skip to the next slide. So the application journey. Often you'll find when you're applying to anything, this is just when you're applying for a job, you've got to work out what the reader is actually wanting to hear, what they're wanting to know, or what they want you to do if you were successful in the application process. So then you'll work, I guess, focused on developing your application, making it as persuasive as possible so that they want to meet with you, they want to interview you, or they want to shortlist you into that next stage. Now, with that in mind, you've got to understand that there's always going to be competition. So this is the part where you've got to put the best you forward and put the best ideas forward. Once you've communicated your value, once you've got through to that interview stage, hopefully all goes well, and then bam, you get the job offer, or bam, you get the application you've been applying for. So what you'll tend to find is when employers are looking at applications, these are the things that they tend to find don't work, the things that don't allow people to progress through those stages. So having an inferior application is one thing, not having a cover letter where you can really sell your skills, and having something that's very generic that you pretty much just click send to any employer is not going to make someone want to meet with you. Yet the things that do make people stand out are the ones that understand the requirements of the organization, the culture that they're trying to develop, someone who's clear in communicating their value and the things they can bring to the role. So that can be demonstrating your skills, it can be talking about the experiences that are relevant or suitable, and as well as that, it can just be filling in the application the way that the employer has asked you to, or the way that the application process is mentioned as well. So there's some things you don't want to do and some things that you do want to do as you're going through these processes. Typical requirements when you're doing an application is to have a CV or a resume, a cover letter or an application letter, and often these days you'll tend to find they'll have something that we call a short response or a selection criteria. So what does this all mean, or what is the difference between these things? Yes, your resume really is just a snapshot of you, your education and experiences. What, again, they want to be able to do is compare you with other applicants. Your cover letter or your application is really about complementing your resume, putting through the skills, putting through the, personality and the personal touches about yourself to make you stand out or make you sound different. Now, when it comes to responding to key selection criteria or key responses or a short statement, you'll tend to find they'll often want you to give examples. They'll want you to give evidence of where you've done things in the past or how you do things in the future. Often this takes a little bit more time and effort, and sometimes is a great way for you to show your communication skills and even sometimes show your research skills to show what you know and how you can apply it. Same goes with your capability statement, suitability statement, statement of claim, whatever they tend to call this. And often this is now done at the interview process. They'll ask you to write one of these before your face-to-face interview. So you've got to make sure you've got something that you can put together that can highlight both your skills, experience, attitude, personality, that's nice and short and sweet, but to the point, because depending on the organization out there, they're wanting to put these different processes in or these different steps to allow them to review you or compare you with your competitors. So you've got to make sure you understand each of these stages. And ideally, once you've practiced this, once you've done this a few times, it does get easier as you go along. So your goal, again, is to evidence and demonstrate why you are the best candidate, how you meet the position description or the job advertisement, and specifically the skills and knowledge that you've had or done in the past that you can bring to the role. Now, the last little point, we want you guys to show success. We want you guys to show the things that you do well. And sometimes this is talking about your grades. Sometimes this is talking about maybe some scholarships you've already received or awards you've already received, but you've got to understand that this is just one part of the whole process. So you've got to obviously do all the points I've just mentioned, but as well as that, have your statement of claims that make you sound better than your competitor or more attractive than some other ones. Now, with regards to your cover letter selection criteria, you've got to make sure that you do personalize it. You've got to make sure that you state why and what you're applying to. It's not just, dear sir, madam. You're really putting in the effort to research who you're sending it to and what you want to say. You need to check for spelling errors, grammar. You need to make sure that it really does indicate your why or the things that make you interested in working with that employer or that role. And then the rest of the bullet points I'm not going to go through, but you've got to make sure that it still does have that positive and persuasive type of focus. It has a reason why you are the most suitable candidate. And whether that be skills, experience, attitude, attributes, whatever it may be, you've got to make sure as well that they can feel that as they're reading that, or they understand where you're coming from or what your motivations are. Keep the chat going. If you've got any questions as I'm going through, feel free to jump in and say it as well. Now, an employer's objectives really are, can this person do the job? Have they done this job before? Will this person be a good team fit? Will they be the right fit for our organization? And also, will this person stay and grow with our organization? Having worked in HR environments in the past, often we'll get multiple great candidates, but sometimes the team fit doesn't work for one candidate because they're not going to fit the existing staff that we've already got. Sometimes we already know that they're using this as a stepping stone to progress overseas or somewhere else. And we don't always hold that against candidates when we're looking in these recruitment processes, but it is something we want to be aware of depending on what the manager or the team really needs. But that first point of, can this person do the job? This is where that evidence and focusing on, I guess, the achievements you've done are something that can make someone more confident to consider you, interview you, or even hire you for a job if that's what they're considering as well. Now, with regards to your resume, you've got to understand your resume is very much a marketing tool that informs and persuades and makes someone want to meet with you. Now, I say this to many people, your resume is kind of growing as you grow. It's developing as you develop. So you've got to make sure that you take the time to update it, you take the time to put the effort in that's relevant to the position that you're applying to. So if you've just got one stock standard resume and you just add position title each time that when you take on a new job or whatever that may be, it's probably not enough in this current market. And again, working with LinkedIn, you've got to understand that there's different requirements for each different role, and you've got to make sure you emphasize those. Last little point, there's no right or wrong way to write a resume. There's just an effective way and an ineffective way. And again, competitive natures are going to be out there all the time in all recruitment processes. So you've got to understand, I need to be the most effective, or I need to stand out to my employer. So sometimes when recruiters are looking at applications, they tend to think qualification, training, and work experience are the three things to confirm, can you do the job or have you done the job? Whether you've worked in a same position in the past, or whether you've done a placement or an internship or whatever that may be, that skills and experience that you're developing in all roles will usually be the ability for them to consider, can you do this job? So this is also sometimes that ticker box. Yes, they've done it. No, they're not done it, but they're going to be suitable. So you've got to make sure you put those things out there, and the keenness and the interest. This often comes through in your objective statement. If they're not looking at your cover letter, they'll often look for the match between your application and the position description. So using keywords, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well, is often the case where they'll work out if you've got the right match or interest in the role. So these three things are things that I used to use, particularly in my yes, no piles or maybe pile as well. I'd usually try and work out, have they done the job? Are they qualified? Have they got the skills? And why are they interested? Sometimes your interest can outweigh everything else, depending on the role you're applying to. So now, when you're looking at job applications, you've got to understand there's always going to be a match between the job ad and the organizational profile, and as well as that, your resume. And the best thing to do is to try and work out how you've highlighted that match. So as you can see, in blue, we've got highlighted the role. In green, we've got highlighted the values of the organization. And then in orange, we've got the skill match. If you can kind of go through your resume and go through a job ad and try and check that you've confirmed or at least evaluated some of the things that they've mentioned, you usually find you've got a better opportunity of getting through the job process. That's just one example. I've got another example to look at here as well. This is a role here at the university for a talent acquisition administrator. And we've gone through and highlighted everything that has values related to it, everything that has knowledge and skills, and then everything that's related to the role. And you'll tend to find it's pretty stock standard here in Australia, particularly, that most job advertisements are written in this sort of layout. And you'll often find between the job ad and the position description, there's also going to be a stronger connection to certain parts of the values and role in each different document as well. So when you're thinking about your resume, you've got to take some time and you've got to utilize the things that are around you. So we've got some great tools online that you can use to go and check your resume on your own. Just do a checklist and check it out. You can also come and see us for resume support. You can submit your resume online to get reviewed by some of our team. But more than anything, you can also talk to your peers, talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, sometimes talk to your professional network about getting feedback and advice that can allow you to kind of take on different aspects or different thoughts from different people to make sure that you're as persuasive or as competitive as possible for the jobs that you're applying to. Last but not least in this section, I just want to talk about the STAR response. Now, particularly when you're considering your cover letter, selection criteria, or any of those other documents that you've got to complete, you've got to make sure that when you're talking about your statement of claim, the things that you've done in the past, your evidence and examples, you've got to make sure that it's easy for someone to follow. Now, industry standard usually leans on the STAR response, or as we've got here, the STAR response. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you've really got to set the scene of where and when you've done these tasks or this type of response. You've got to talk about what was involved, who you worked with, and how you came to making these sorts of decisions or assumptions or a proposal that you might have needed to do. The actions, when you put things in place, how you did it, who you did it with, and then lastly, did it work? Now, using just the STAR response is a great way to evidence activities and things that you've done in the past. Adding the L to it, I think, is a really good way to start to show your development opportunities or how you'd work in an organization, because sometimes you might want to evaluate what you do differently next time, or maybe even in a learnt environment, how you might apply that in a different industry or organization as well. So as I said, common practice to have this response, particularly at the interview stage, not just in the application stage, but you've got to make sure that you start thinking of being very descriptive and being very professional in the way that you respond to these types of things. So when you're considering putting your application together, you've got to approach it like an assignment. You've got to take your time, do your research, understand the application process. You've got to make sure, like we just talked about the STAR response, you say what you've done and you prove it by giving examples. As well as with your application, proofread it again, get someone else to check it, and always keep a copy on file, maybe for your next application, or even if you're successful into the next stage and getting an interview. This is really just a snapshot of application processes. There's lots of other great resources around. And depending whether you're applying for a job or depending whether you're applying for a scholarship or any other types of things that are out there, you've got to make sure that you consider all the readers or all the people that you're wanting to put this in front of, and you put your best application forward. I tend to find, for me, the best thing that I find is the more research I do about something, the more people I talk to, the more people I interact with, allows me to create a better application in no matter what place I'm working with. And you might even find that similar with your assignments. If you put the right research together, you get the right results. But you've got to make sure you take the time. So over to our next speaker to start talking about the Golden Key Society. So I'm just going to bring this up for Sonia to turn her mic and camera on, and then I'll be back on in a moment as well. Thanks, Sonia.
Thanks, Justin. Just bear with me. I think I'm just clicking on the share screen here. Okay, and can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Good, thanks very much. Okay, so thanks, Kim, thanks, Justin. I mean, this is a great session. It's very useful tips. So I'm Sonia Riverland, the Relationship Manager from Golden Key. And I'm just going to take us through a few slides about the scholarships and awards. The main thing is to know that, you know, Golden Key is a resource that supports a lot of your goals with studies and going on to do other things like postgraduate studies and, you know, humanitarian services and things like that. So we've awarded over $14 million since 1977, which is quite substantial. Our scholarships range between $500 to $10,000. The main thing is to know to go onto the website, find the scholarships link, and just being aware that the deadline is coming up on the 15th of December. But if you do miss that, there's still another round, which is the 15th of April 2024. The categories that we have are quite a few. The most popular are basically the Graduate Scholar Award and also the Undergraduate Achievement Award. And just to let you know how the last round went, so last June 2023, we had 38 fantastic recipients. And just to give you an idea of, you know, what's the proportion of applicants to the people who actually are awarded the scholarship, under the graduate category, graduate scholar category, we had 171 completed applications. And for the Undergraduate Achievement Award, we had about 73 applications and we picked about 10 winners. So it's not hugely competitive. And in terms of the different categories, you've got Undergraduate Achievement Award is about 1,000, the Graduate Scholar Award about 2,500, Professional Development $750, the Golden Key Outstanding Member Award is 500. And I think this is where, you know, I want to just pause to thank and acknowledge, I think Martin Junkel's in this session as well. But as the president of Golden Key, I just wanted to say hello to you and to thank everybody who's been involved with the committee for this year. We really appreciate that. Really encourage you to apply for some of these categories as well. And in terms of this, not to take in too much detail, but just to show you that, you know, if you go into the website, you'll go through this platform called Xhuma. So just sign in You just follow the prompts. You'll get like an OTP, and then you just see more details about each award and the criteria that's involved. So just it's pretty straightforward, but you may need to collect some references and things like that, put together a resume, do a pitch. There's one category where you might need to do a short video. So there's a little bit more that you will need to work on and think about. But it's pretty straightforward. And the other thing to know is that we have an external company that does all the assessment. So it's pretty arbitrary. And I think Justin's given some really good tips about how to, do your pitch and that sort of thing. So I encourage you to jump online and have a look at that today. And the other person I wanted to acknowledge was Tim Kwang Siu Wu. Tim has won the recipient of the Undergraduate Achievement Award for Griffith in the last round. So we're really pleased about that. If you've got any questions, do get in touch with us at APAC. You can email myself, my email address is there, or you can just reach out through the website. So thanks very much.
Great, thank you very much. So I know that was very informative. We're just putting the slides back up. I think Kim's doing that at the moment. So we're just going to bring on our next speakers as well to chat about their experience with some applications processes as well. So if I can get our other panelists now to turn their microphones on, that'd be great. So Martin and Darren, if you guys are there.
Hi, Justin. Hi, Martin.
Hey,
hi,
guys.
everyone.
Hey.
Good to have you guys here today. So we're going to start with Martin to give us a bit of a background on his application processes that he's been involved with in the past, and we'll head over to you, Darren. So if you want to turn your camera off, Darren, while we're doing this, that'd be great. Then we'll turn your camera back on in a moment. So Martin, give us a bit of a background on yourself, and if you can, give us a bit of a rundown on some of the applications that you've been involved in the past. And then if possible, let's go for 3 tips that you could give our audience today on what they might want to achieve or look at with regards to their applications moving forward as well.
Yep, so hi everyone. As Justin mentioned, my name is Martin. I'm currently a PhD candidate with Griffith University. So I'm in my final year of that now, and I'm also Golden Keys president and have been for the past couple of years. So I've actually had quite a bit of extensive experience in applying for different applications in a range of different, I guess, mediums. And Justin's actually been around to help me with a few of those, which has been very, very helpful for me. But in total, I've maybe applied for around 20 to 30 different applications in the past 8 or so years. And that goes from like things to do with like research scholarships or grant funding to personal development scholarships, conferences, and even I guess one of my first applications was actually to Griffith Honours College. And so I've had quite a bit of a journey with different applications and different things like that. So I've got quite a bit of experience in, at least personally, what's worked for me, what hasn't worked, and how to, I guess, leverage my strengths in order to be more successful. So in terms of what my 3 tips would be, the first thing I would say for anyone is don't be afraid to fail. I know a lot of people won't apply for different applications or scholarships or funding or things like that just because they have this predetermined thought that they already are going to fail and will not receive or be successful in their application. So one key one for me I know is that I applied for the Golden Key Undergraduate Achievement Scholarship a few years back, and it took me, I think it was 4 or 5 attempts to actually be successful in that. But in failing each time, I was able to go back and look at my application and reflect on it and to better it each time. So I was able to highlight what the weaknesses were and try and figure out how I could improve it, not only in just the application writing itself, but in also my character and my I guess contributions to society, which is what Golden Key is primarily about. So I was able to also use this to learn how to, I guess, pivot. So that's another big one, is being able to pivot and work with feedback from other people, and to transform and adjust your applications in order to deal with the feedback that's given to you, and to work with failure and see failure really as more a learning curve rather than a setback. So that was one of the biggest things that I've learned and been able to take from that is not being afraid to fail. And it kind of ties in with my second tip, which is to be persistent and critical. Sometimes it's just not the right time, and a lot of times applications will have different, I guess, competitiveness based on the time of year it is, or based on how many people are applying, and so on. So sometimes it's just not the right time for you to be awarded a particular application or scholarship or funding or whatever it is you're applying for. And a lot of the time there are multiple rounds for different applications. So using this knowledge and being critical of areas that you can find you can improve on will strengthen any scholarship that you're actually applying for. And number 3, which is my biggest one, and this is something that I've carried on from pretty much my first few years of university back, I think now it's 8 years ago, which feels like a long time to me now, but it's to be authentic. And hopefully you can understand what I mean when I say be authentic, but it's to write an application. You should be writing an application based on your values, based on your attitudes, and based on how you are as a person. So don't write an application with the thought of, the reviewer or the interviewer or the HR rep or whoever wants me to say this, so I'm going to say this. I'm going to say I have really good communication skills, or I have really good teamwork skills, because those come across as very generic. And interviewers and HR reps, they know this. They know when you're just writing what they want to hear. But if you're authentic and you share your own personal experiences and use your background, your story, your journey, and you can center an application, particularly say the golden key ones, which are quite lengthy in terms of how you write them. It's not just a resume and cover letter that's one page. So if you're able to kind of develop your own narrative or your own story and use that application to develop your story and really convey that authenticity of who you are as a person, that goes a long way and really highlights to whoever's reading it why you are deserving of whatever application or scholarship you're applying for. So those are probably my 3 big things. If anyone has any questions at any point after, or anything they'd like clarified or covered, I'm happy to go with that as well.
That was really good, Martin. Thank you for the rundown. And like you said, you've applied for many different things. I think the best thing, even though you said how many things you've applied for, you've been successful in many of these areas, both study, employment, as well as scholarships and different research things as well. So you should be really proud of the progress you've made. And I think the feedback you've given us all today, or the recommendations, are all really adaptable and suitable for a lot of the students that we've got here as well. So thank you very much, Martin. If you want to just pop your camera and mic off, that'd be great. And Darren, if you want to come in, and we'll do the same sort of thing with you in a moment as well.
Hi,
so
hi
Darren
everyone.
Yep, I was just going to say Darren is joining us from Singapore at the moment, so thank you for taking the time and fitting your time zone in with us. We'll just get started as well. If you want to give us a bit of a background on your application processes, particularly the one you've been most recently successful in, would be great. And we'd love to hear your 3 top tips that you would give to students applying or looking at applying for different things at the moment as well.
Okay. Sure, Justin. So a little bit background about myself. So I'm a facility manager turned adult educator. And just this year, I've completed the Master of Learning and Professional Development at Griffith University. So I'm also one of the lucky recipients of the Graduate Scholar Award. And of course, some of my past application, most commonly, of course, job applications, and applying for my postgraduate studies, of course, at Griffith University. So then, of course, in the course of my work, I also need to apply for some government grants. For example, to design innovative learning solutions to improve pedagogies and things like that. And of course, more recently will be the scholarship that I've applied, for the Golden Key Graduate Scholar Award. So there are 3 tips that I think might be useful if any of you are considering applying for this scholarship. I actually classified them as the 3R. Okay, first one is reflect. So this actually works for me. So what I did was I actually delved into my past experiences, the challenges that I faced, or the circumstances that have changed that actually motivated me to pursue a postgraduate studies. And of course, besides that, if you're applying for the scholarship, you can consider what are some of the achievements, okay, or significant experiences that have ignited your passion in your chosen field. So I've seen from the chat, some of you are in biomedical, paramedicine, and psychology and things like that. So there must be a reason why you have chosen this field of study. And so one approach is to really reflect on your past and use this reflection to really define what is the purpose behind your pursuit of your study, whether is it undergraduate or postgraduate studies. So the first tip is reflect. The second R, which is reason. So once you have identified the why of pursuing your study, the next thing is to consider, for the case of Golden Key, there are 3 pillars that they emphasize on. First one is academic, second one will be leadership, and lastly will be service. So under the second R, which is reason, what you need to do is to explain and of course provide examples of some of your plans that you have in mind on how your studies can actually contribute to positive change, and of course making improvements to whether a group of individuals, organization, the society, the environment, or maybe your particular field of study. Okay, so for instance, if you are in biomedical, your goal, may be to develop a new medicine that can, prevent future pandemic, okay, like the COVID. Okay, so this is the second R that I would suggest for you to consider. Explain, provide example or your plan on how you can bring impact to the world. And of course, lastly, the last R will be review. So under the review stage, I would suggest that you begin the application process much earlier. So of course, the coming deadline will be 15 December as shared by Sonia. There's a second window, which is by April 24. So if you're not ready, I suggest that you don't rush it. So begin your application process early so that you got sufficient time to review whether your personal statement or essay that you need to submit. And of course, ask people around you who are familiar with your life, your journey, to provide constructive feedback. And of course, make sure that there's no error in whatever things that you submit, and ensure that there's a clarity of expression. Okay, so to sum up, yep, the 3R, I hope is helpful. Reflect, reason, and review. Okay, that's all for me, and let me know if you got any questions.
Darren, that was awesome. And I think really good branching off from what Martin was mentioning as well, and emphasizing, I guess, a real focus on reflection. I think that's really good. So thank you so much for your input and your tips. They were really good. Now, for our next speaker, Isabel actually can't be with us, but I've got Kim to give us a bit of a background. I think there's a slide that she's going to share as well. So let's just pretend that Isabel's here, and Kim can actually let us know why Isabel isn't here. So I'll let you take over from here, and we'll go from there.
Great, wonderful. Thank you, Justin. Yes, so Isabel is our undergraduate student that was going to be on our panel today, but she has just made it through to the next round in a really prestigious scholarship program. And it just happened to fall that she's been interviewed in Canberra, which fell on this exact time. So we were really excited that she's made it through to the next round. And we have all our fingers and toes crossed for her. She's an amazing student, and she's just in her second year of study. So Isabel kindly shared some top tips with us, because she's, as not only did she win the New Member Award this year, and was allocated that at the New Member Recognition event this year, but she has throughout this year gone through quite a lot of application processes. And so she did want to share some of the things that have worked for her as an undergraduate student very early in her career. And it was very much around you know, you won't be surprised, planning. So starting a timeline and working to that timeline so you can really spend the time to cohesively put your application together so that you're going to break it down into bite-sized chunks. I always like the saying that how are you going to eat an elephant? You're going to eat an elephant one bite at a time. So a lot of the time when you start an application or a job application or an application for a scholarship, everything can seem really overwhelming. So if you really break it down into different sections, really reflect and work on those sections and make sure, and if you've got that pre-planning in advance, that you know that the sections are all going to come together and flow. It's sort of those linking sentences at the end and the start of paragraphs when you're writing essays as well. That's something to really bear in mind. And Isabel, so really, she has talked to me a lot through her application process about balance and really making sure that you're taking the time to look after yourself as well as when you're doing all of this stuff. A lot of the students that we work through in the Griffith Honours College in Gold Key, they have very high expectations about for themselves. So it's really important that they take that time for self-care. And you know, really, I say this to a colleague that was working late last night. I'm like, when you're tired, you don't do your best work. So really make sure that you prioritise to get in the right headspace when you're working on your applications, because it will start, you get into that process of flow as well. And if you really try to push it, I think if there's anyone from our creative arts here, they will know this well, is you can't just turn it on as a flick of the switch. You've got to get into the zone. And one thing that Isabella said worked really well for her was looking at past winners and looking at their profiles and how they had really built on the experiences they had. And LinkedIn's a fantastic resource to do this, and Justin's going to talk about that a little bit later. But really, if you can have a look at past recipients and see, you know, you can always see how they're built there. A lot of the times, I know for the scholarship that Isabel applying for, the profiles of the previous recipients are always posted online, so you can review those and look at what, you know, what makes a successful recipient. So I'm going to hand over now to Victoria Menzies. Victoria Menzies was formerly the manager of the Honours College, and Victoria, you should be able to turn on your microphone and camera, and you should be able to, like Justin did, take control of our little slide deck. Victoria has just stepped into a new role here at Griffith University this year, as she's the prestigious external scholarships coach. So how is that working for you, Victoria?
I'm just seeing how I click through where the control actually is, Kim. Anyway, yes, I'm Victoria Menzies, and this is a new role that I've taken on, which was part of the role that I performed as manager of the Honours College, and then it was recognised that really Griffith has a gap and there was an opportunity. So I'm working part-time in this role, which is just supporting people through the prestigious external scholarships process. So I want to build on essentially what people have already said. So Justin raised some really critical things about life skills and that applications of life skills, as did Martin and Darren, and I'm going to draw on some of those kind of comments that they make. So what is a prestigious external scholarship, first of all? So Golden Key would be classed really as one of these, but these are really your big ones, and they're international. So they're not university-based. The only undergraduate one is the New Colombo place. The New Colombo is the only one that really is the prestigious international one for undergraduate. So prestigious, you would know of the Rhodes, you probably have heard of Fulbright, and you may have heard of Churchill. Those are just a couple of the international prestigious scholarships. Now, these are for undergraduates, but they really track through your whole professional career as well, okay? So some of you in the audience would be alumni, and certainly you could consider applying for one of these scholarships. Martin, I would encourage you to consider applying for a Fulbright because you're doing your PhD currently, and you might be thinking about, maybe I'd like to apply to do a postdoctoral fellowship in the States. So starting with this, research. What actually are these scholarships and what's right for you? So they are not a way of just funding you to go overseas and travel overseas. That's not what they're about. They are about supporting talented people who are academically obviously very, very bright, but also deeply committed to having an impact in the world. These are people who want to change the world. Okay, so that's really a way of thinking about what they are. They give you an opportunity to travel to any country in the world, depending on what the actual prestigious scholarship is. But for the most of them, if it's Fulbright, it's the States. If it's Churchill, it's anywhere. And they vary from potentially just a month, 2 months, to it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, okay, depending on whether you're looking at doing postgraduate studies or whether you're looking at a professional fellowship. So they can be separated into scholars program and into fellowship program. The fellowship, if you think about it, it's not for study, it's for professional development. And the scholarships are study-based scholarships, okay? There's more information on this, but again, it's for you to really think about what's right for you and just looking. So I'm just talking very broadly at present. So why would you apply? It gives you the most extraordinary access to incredible professional communities and professional development. So you might have seen recently that Griffith has just got 2 General Sir John Monash scholars through, and both of those are in the health areas. One of them you may have heard of, which is Dr. Palapani, Dinesh Palapani. And now, why would Dinesh, someone who's been Queenslander of the Year, why would he be interested in doing further studies? He's already a doctor, he's already done specialisations and things. Why would Dinesh be interested? It brings him into a community of other professionals. And so here's an opportunity to really grow his influence about people with disability and being an advocate in an incredible community. So these are extraordinary communities that you're brought into with loads of professional development, and they are there forevermore. Okay, so what are these scholarships? Thanks, Kim, for moving on. This, you can have a look. If you search prestigious external scholarships at Griffith, it will come up. Have a look at these. We try to assist you as much as possible with online information as well. So I won't talk about the specific scholarships now. I've mentioned already that they are for alumni, they're for the others. Now, what's right for you? If you have a look at this eligibility matrix, it will give you a sense of whether you can or cannot apply. So I was just talking to someone recently that was given Fulbright, however, had to decline it because they actually have dual citizenship. So you need to understand about really which scholarship and what, whether you are eligible to apply for these or not eligible. Again, we've got this information online. So research. Okay, Kim, if you can click on that, it'd be great. So the next one, what makes a strong application? Now, this is where I really want to draw on what Justin said. Justin was focused to a degree on careers and job applications. There's not necessarily a huge amount of difference. What I can say to you is that I do observe with exceptional applicants. And so the people I've been working with, for example, this year are at the very, very, very top. And you might have somebody who's a medical professional and they may have been a medalist at university, and they put together an application that they've done many, many, many times before. So the danger I do see is that people tend to get very generic and they go into their formulaic response. Now, as Justin said, this is a life skill. It is a life skill. Make sure you understand your audience. Who is the audience? Fulbright is very different from, say, Churchill Fellowship, is very different from a Cambridge Fellowship, is very different from the Australian General Sir John Monash scholarship. So you need to understand, well, who are they? What are they looking at? Now, Martin made the comment about values and authenticity. If you think it's what a panel wants to hear, get out of that space. What you need to think about is you. What drives you? Why this scholarship? Why this university? Why this career path? Why not this other scholarship? Why not this other career path? So think about specifically you and your journey, your narrative, and how this particular scholarship aligns with you. And that is your audience, is the scholarship and how you can really do it in quite a compelling way. So I call that narrative, your life narrative. And one of the things that Martin mentioned is being authentic. It is you. So one of the traps that people fall in is that it's way too general and you think it's something that you want panelists to read. Now, the difference with the panel group for scholarships is that they're often not experts in your area. So when you go for a job application, they're going to often be the experts in the area and they can pick the fraud. What you need to do is put out anyone. So I think that Martin might have, or Darren mentioned, talk to as many different people as you can. So these panelists are often made up of previous scholars, not specialists in your area again, but they may be CEOs, they might be ambassadors, they may be business professionals, all kinds of discipline areas. So one of the tips that I would give to you is just talk to all kinds of people. Notice when people are interested in what you have to say, and that can improve the way you articulate really your story, why your story matters, what excites you. Notice when you're excited, notice when people lean in and what they're saying. The other thing I think that's really important is that whole impact, which everyone's been talking about. Now, the difference between a job and really a prestigious scholarship is the panel wants to know about how you are going to have an impact. And that is through being successful, being awarded this scholarship, how are you going to have a genuine impact? And that is going to be shared more broadly than just yourself. So these become not about I, they become about community and impact and the world. So think about what it is you want to change. So some of the people that I worked with this year that actually made it through to interview phase really could not articulate that impact. And that was the feedback from the panel about what difference will it make and why it matters so much for you. So excellence, how can you demonstrate excellence? Your passion is about what drives you, what excites you. Notice whether other people. What's your vision of yourself and your future for the future? Now, don't be shy about that. Don't be humble. Other people are not being shy and humble. They're trying to really show big impact. Partnerships is something that I've mentioned in the tips. Do get across in what way you have connected with other people. What are your partnerships? If you're applying for something like Fulbright, who are you partnering with the States? Who are your collaborators? Who within Australia have been your collaborators? One of the other things I will say that's often a weakness is people have not nurtured their referees. And I don't think that this is something we've really talked about before, but Justin may touch on this a little bit later. Nurture your referees throughout your journey. Touch, connect with them, acknowledge them, keep those driving relationships really happening. And one of the things that Darren mentioned as well is your review, your peer review. Get people to give you feedback. Often you do not see the gaps in your application. I think that's probably really all I need to say there, but it does take a few goes. So people often apply, and what happens is that they're not successful in the first round, but later on they are successful. So Don't feel failure in your first time. I've just worked with somebody who's applied for 3 years in a row, and they were offered 2 this year, and they had to make a decision between one of those big ones, which will be announced later this year. So with that, I'll say my role is really to support you through the process. There will be information coming up. So we will be organising a information session, which is an online one later on. Check our information. I'm happy to have a chat with anyone about prestigious scholarships if you're looking at doing, say, postgraduate studies or postdoctoral studies, or if you are a professional now and you're looking at perhaps applying for a Churchill Fellowship. Okay, so with that, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, Victoria. That was great. Some really good points. And just confirming as well on this slide, it just highlights how to reach out in future in regards to applying for prestigious scholarships. The Honours College is the best place to start. And then from there, you'll be connected through to Victoria for private consultation or interaction.
Can I just clarify that? Sorry, Justin, it's not
Good.
the Honours College. The Honours College is not the contact for prestigious scholarship. The Honours is the scholar. If you're applying for New Colombo Plan, then it is the Honours College. Otherwise, there is a prestigious external scholarship email. If you go onto the website, you'll be able to find that. So the Honours College just had too big a responsibility.
Great.
And so
we might pop that email address in the chat. That'd be awesome.
Happy to put that in the chat. Okay, I'll do that. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Victoria. So the next few slides, we're going to fly through these pretty quickly because we want to get out of here as quick as we can. But we want to make sure that we kind of wrap this up with some ideas on things that we can keep focusing on and building on from what everyone has mentioned today. So knowing your strengths and your skills that you can offer an employer or you can offer for whatever you're applying to can be a great thing to be proud of and be confident in. I mean, a nice little saying here is you're successful because of who you are, not who you aren't. So don't try and be someone that you're not. Make sure you lean into the skills and experience as well as the strengths that you could take to a new place or take to a new role or take your experience with you to highlight the things you're good at. And this comes back to what we were talking about with regards to evidencing. You want to make sure that you've asked your referees, your colleagues, people that you've studied with, what are my strengths? Don't just go off what you think. And there's some great tools out there where you can answer some multiple choice questions and basically do surveys to give you a bit of a strengths identification and focus. But utilizing the people around you is the best way to work out, hey, what am I known for? What am I want to be known for? And what do I want to keep working on? And this comes back to when Victoria was talking about your referees. You've got to build your squad. And I have taken this saying from Victoria, but you want to have people around you that will support you, will help you develop, as well as that will connect you with people that can keep you progressing and keep you developing. So making sure that they're connectors. Now, your referees, no matter who they are, whether they're people you've worked with, studied with, or whatever that is, you need to make sure they're aware that you're using them as a referee so that you understand what sort of things they'll say about you. And if it comes a time where you need to update your referees, it's a great idea to let your previous referees know, hey, I'm now going to take you off my resume, my referee list. Thank you for being a referee in the past, because you never know when you might want to go back and add them in later. There's great ways to find more places to develop your network, and industry mentoring is a great program here at Griffith, which I'd recommend you connect with. The clubs in the SRC and the Student Guild are also great, but LinkedIn, which is in my next slide, I think is the best place for you guys to start looking. And as Isabel mentioned, looking at previous recipients of some of the scholarships she's applied for has been a great way for her to do a bit of career modeling or mapping on what people have done. But it's a great way for you just to start to reach out, start to find people that you want to be connected with, and even find maybe alumni or graduates that are doing things that you one day want to do in places you want to do them with people that you want to work with. So I really do recommend, from both a research point of view as well as a development point of view, LinkedIn is your friend. If you're not already using it regularly, I'd recommend start using it. And if you're needing assistance with it, feel free to reach out to the careers team or even some of your academics to talk to them about how you can stand out or how you can, let's say, make your profile as professional as possible to new and existing people that you want to connect with as well. Now, my next point is just do it. So happenstance is a theory that exists in the career space, which is all about putting things in place to make things happen. So this is making sure that you are considerate of yourself and you're being curious, you're being flexible, you're being persistent, like some of our colleagues have said today, but as well as that, you're looking around for ways that you can make yourself and allow yourself to adapt and change in this developing environment. Usually what I say to people is if you're interested in working in a particular field, or if you're interested in getting a particular scholarship, maybe consider interning, maybe consider doing some work experience, maybe work out if you can do an informational interview with someone that you want to connect with so that you can find the right people to put in place and the right things to do so that you can progress faster or as fast as you want to be in that space as well. A lot of this comes down to setting goals. Now, as much as we've all heard the SMART goals thing in the past, you want to make sure that you've got these in place so that you can reflect on them. You can review and you can take the right steps. Oh, I've gone too far. You can take the right steps so that you can understand how you need to evaluate or change these. I usually recommend people should look at their goal setting on an annual basis. And if you've got a 12-month plan or even shorter than that, that's fine, but it's good to have a long-term goal as well. So I'm usually recommending most students have a 12-month plan, a three-year plan, and then ideally a 5 or 10-year plan. And again, these goals are set to be reached, but at the same time, they're set to be changed because we will change as we develop and as you learn more things or connect with more people. Sometimes your pathways will change and your goals will be different to what they were when they started. So just coming back to wrapping up, your study journey at any university or any process that you do in a workplace as well is unique to you. So your goals are unique to you. Your dreams and strengths and interests are unique to you and how you want to do things. Being authentic to yourself is really important, as well as you got to do that when you're applying for jobs and you're being authentic in your application, but you need to be honest with yourself about what you want and how you want to do it. You need to ensure that you're aligning your work experience, your study experience, even sometimes the extra time that you invest in other things other than study to make sure that it's progressing you in the direction that you want to do. Re-emphasizing building your squad, your mentors, your references, and your support people. And that can sometimes just be your family as well, but making sure that they are supporting you as much as you can and you're leaning into those. Getting back to applications, planning, understanding of research, then planning again, then researching again. You've got to make sure you're doing these things regularly to keep online with what you want to achieve so that you can then hopefully continue to build your professional brand or your personal brand in line with your values and goals with the people you want. Now, if you haven't heard it at the university recently, purpose is a big thing for Griffith. So you need to make sure you understand what your purpose is or how that fits with organizations in line with your values and goals. So it's just enough, just in time, and just for you, not just too much, which again is another quote from Victoria. So thank you for that. So if you want to pop any questions in the chat as we're going, the last thing we've got is we'd love you guys to set some steps that you want to focus on next. So ideally, if we could set some goals that you want to achieve in the next 4 months, some actions for each of these goals, and put a time frame on how you want to achieve those, that'd be something I'd be recommending for most of you guys to do today. If that means researching applications for scholarships, if that means researching opportunities for jobs, setting a couple of steps of what you might want to do, who you might want to talk to, can be a great way for you guys to understand what's next and how I want to apply that. Keep in mind when you're working or studying here at the university at the moment, you can interact with the career service for any of these topics. And there's a wide range of different people on the Gold Coast and Nathan campus that are here to support. If it's maybe looking over your goals, looking over your application, sometimes helping you find the right places to look, reach out to us. We're more than happy to catch up with you guys, either for a one-on-one appointment or a couple of appointments that can help you build and develop what you're looking for. I must admit, this time last year when we ran this same session, I think I interacted with at least 10 people after this session, all with regards to where do I look for scholarships? Where do I look for overseas opportunities, like all sorts of things. And sometimes not knowing is one thing, but reaching out to people and finding out what's next can be helpful as well. Going to fly through the next few slides. We've got some great resources online that you can interact with utilizing our website. So if you're wanting to build your resume, prep for interviews, or even find a job, feel free to reach out or scan the QR codes. We'll be sending these slides around at the end as well, so you'll get a copy of these. Also, keep in mind Career Hub, which is probably where you booked for this event, is a great location for you guys to look for work or look for some other career-related activities that you might want to get involved in, or also reach out to us as well on there as also. Just reiterating, if you're wanting to book an appointment, this is the website. This is the website here. So feel free to take that. And over to questions to finish this off. So just before we get to that, just want to say thank you for everyone attending today. Again, I hope everyone got a little bit out of it. Thank you for all of our panelists and our other speakers as well. You were great. And getting close to the end of the year, I hope that this is a meaningful activity that you guys might want to look out for activities, maybe even in the new year as well. So over to Kim to start the questions, and thank you again.